It's a sunny morning, and all the windows are opened to the lounge area. It's silent, but you can hear the sound of birds, wind, and cars running outside. A woman in her late 20s, Lucy, sits on a couch with a worried expression. The silence ends when her phone buzzes, and she glances at the phone screen. First, she sees the wallpaper, a picture of her mother. They say betrayal cuts are deeper than a knife. I never truly understood that until I lived it. This is the story of how my family, already burdened by my mom's terminal illness, was torn apart by the person we trusted most. My name is Lucy, and this is how I learned that not all angels are as they seem. It started 14 years ago. My mom, Maria, had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. She was the most beautiful, kind-hearted woman, always putting others before herself. Even as her health deteriorated, she never let us see her fear. But I saw it. I saw it in the way she lingered over my goodnight hugs and in the quiet tears she tried to hide from me. She was my best friend, and losing her terrified me. My dad, Greg, tried to keep the family together. He worked long hours to pay for her treatments, and though he rarely smiled anymore, he made sure I never missed a meal or a day of school. During this difficult time, Elena, my mom's best friend, stepped in to help. Elena had been in our lives for as long as I could remember. She and Mom met in college and have been inseparable ever since. She was like a fun aunt who brought gifts and told funny stories. When Mom's diagnosis came, Elena became even more present. She helped with hospital visits, cooked meals, and often stayed the night to keep Mom company while Dad worked late. At first, I thought Elena was a blessing. She'd make us laugh with her dramatic impressions and cheer Mom with memories of their wild college days. But as the weeks turned into months, I noticed subtle changes in how she acted around Dad. They'd share quiet conversations in the kitchen after dinner, their heads bent close together. I'd hear them laugh softly, the kind of laughter that felt too intimate for friends. I didn't understand it then, but something made my stomach hurts. Mom, of course, noticed too, though she never said anything outright. I could see the sadness in her eyes when she caught them talking. She was too weak to confront them, and maybe she thought it wasn't worth the fight. But I knew she felt betrayed. How could she not? Elena was supposed to be her best friend and confidant, yet she was stealing quiet moments with the one person Mom needed most. One day, things escalated. Mom had been admitted to the hospital for a particularly bad bout of pneumonia, and Elena offered to take care of me while Dad stayed by Mom's side. I thought it would be a fun sleepover, but it felt like I was being pushed out of my home. Elena insisted we pack a bag and go to her place, leaving Mom alone in the hospital. When I protested, she snapped. Something she'd never done before. "Your mom will be fine, Lucy. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." That night at Elena's house, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mom, alone in a cold hospital bed, and how much I wanted to be there holding her hand. When I finally did drift off, I was woken by the sound of voices downstairs. Creeping to the top of the stairs, I saw Elena and Dad sitting on the couch, talking in hushed tones. Her hand was on his arm, and his face was turned toward hers in a way that made my chest ache. I stepped forward, and they were actually kissing. I went back to bed, tears stinging my eyes. Over the next few weeks, the distance between Mom and Dad grew. He stopped visiting her as often, claiming work was too demanding. Instead, Elena would take me to see Mom. She'd sit by Mom's bedside, chatting as if nothing was wrong, but I could see the tension in Mom's clenched jaw and tired eyes. I tried to bring it up once, asking Mom if she thought Dad was acting strange. She smiled weakly and said, "Your dad's doing his best, sweetheart. We all are." But I knew she was lying, and I knew she was hurting. The day Mom came home from the hospital should have been a happy one, but it was anything but. She was weaker than ever and clearly didn't have much time left. Dad barely spoke to her, and when he did, his words were clipped and distant. Elena, meanwhile, seemed to be everywhere, flitting around the house like she owned it. She'd bring Mum tea and fluff her pillows, all while sneaking glances at Dad that made my skin crawl. One night, I overheard Mum and Dad arguing. Their voices were low, but the pain in Mum's voice was unmistakable. "You've already taken so much from me, Greg," she said. "At least let me die with some dignity." I didn't hear his response, but Dad and Elena were gone the following day. Mum didn't say anything about it, nor did I. She just sat by the window, staring out at the garden she used to love tending to, her hands trembling. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, but I didn't know how. I was just a 12-year-old kid, and I felt powerless. The final weeks of Mum's life were a blur. She was moved to a nursing home where she could receive round-the-clock care. Dad visited less frequently, always with some excuse about work or traffic. Elena didn't come at all. I stayed by Mum's side as much as possible, holding her hand and reading her favorite books aloud. But I was later sent to my aunt's house in another town because my dad wasn't around, and I couldn't stay at a nursing home. The day she passed away, I couldn't be with her because I was not in the town. But I remember at my last visit, she whispered, "Be strong, Lucy. Don't let them break you." I didn't fully understand what she meant then, but those words stayed with me. After Mum's funeral, Dad and Elena moved in together. It didn't take long for me to realize their relationship hadn't started after Mum's death. It had been going on for months, maybe even years. I wanted to confront them, stand up for Mum, and demand answers. But I didn't. I was too scared, too broken. Instead, I threw myself into school and tried to pretend everything was normal. But the anger and sadness never really went away. They simmered beneath the surface, coloring every interaction and every memory of Mum. Now, today, on my mom's 14th death anniversary, as I stand by her grave, the sun setting behind the trees, I feel a sense of closure. "I miss you, Mum," I whisper, placing a bouquet of her favorite lilies on the headstone. "But I'll be okay. You taught me to be strong, and I'll carry that with me forever." Betrayal may cut deep, but real, unconditional love heals even the deepest wounds. And that's the legacy my mum left me.